My name is Karin Henderson. I am super happy to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend your day with us. We're going to launch a poll here. While you're answering this question, this is where we're going to start today. So, what part of onboarding feels hard for you right now? And while we're chatting about that, I'm just going to quickly share with you about a little bit what I do. So I started a consultancy just 1 year ago tomorrow, actually, and it's called J2K Consulting. And I just have a simple goal. I really just want to help people help people. Having many years of experience with local nonprofits, I was seeing similar problems over and over again. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And I wanted to be able to help out and ease some of the friction for organizations. So here, 1 year later, I'm working with a number of local nonprofits, in a variety of different ways, with certifications in both nonprofit management and volunteer administration. I meet my clients where they're at and provide the support that works best for them and what's their priority at the time. So between volunteer and program management to fundraising to strategic board support, I'm able to offer a variety of services to get organizations back on track to helping people help people. It looks like we have lots of participation in the poll right now. And our big problems here are ghosting, a long process, and keeping people engaged. So those are real, and we're going to dig into all of those today. Thanks everybody for participating there. So this might feel a little counterintuitive right now, especially if you've been struggling to recruit volunteers. But what we're seeing again is that recruitment isn't actually the biggest issue. It's what happens after someone says yes. There is a gap between interest and activation, and that's where we're losing people. If this sounds familiar to you, then you are in the right webinar. Let's dig in. So if we were to map out what the volunteer journey looks like, it's pretty straightforward. Someone is interested, they apply, they go through screening and training, and eventually they start. But in reality, people are dropping off at every single one of these stages. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes we don't even notice it happening. And sometimes we realize it much later. The truth is, again, drop-off happens at every stage. But if we're tracking our progress and we have clear and consistent systems, it's easy for us to identify when and where each volunteer drops off. And while we might not be able to prevent it fully, we can at least be aware of when to have a conversation with the volunteer and either get them back on track, learn more about the accessibility of our systems, and maybe even get them engaged in a different way. So why do volunteers ghost? So I'll be honest with you, very vulnerable moment for me. This is something I learned the hard way. And I want to encourage you, if any of what I'm about to say sounds familiar, let me know in the chat with an emoji of your choice. Maybe it's a ghost or a thumbs up or whatever emoji you're feeling today. I was working at an organization and we had lots of people applying to volunteer. That was not the problem. The problem was capacity. And I would imagine that capacity is ringing a bell to a lot of people right now. We were tracking everything on a spreadsheet. And when roles opened up, I would simply go to the most recent applicants because it was easier. They were right there at the top of the list. And before long, as I started to dig through that top of the list, I realized there are people who had been waiting for over a year to be contacted to volunteer at the organization. You can imagine that sinking feeling that I had in my stomach when I realized that. They had applied, they were interested, and they just got lost in the process. So I started calling them. Some of them didn't answer my calls or didn't reply to my messages, and honestly, I could not blame them. But many were still interested, which was incredible. I ended up finding some real gems in there, some long-term volunteers and some people who just said, I was just hoping, waiting for you to call me. So I got lucky there. But that moment changed how I approached onboarding because it wasn't that people didn't want to volunteer. It was that our process wasn't supporting them. We had no clear process. Clearly, we had long wait times. We weren't communicating with them or even acknowledging that their applications had been received. They had no connection to the organization or to the mission because the steps for me were easy because I was just taking the shortcut. In reality, I wasn't honoring the process. And for the volunteer, there was no quick win. It took taking a step back and looking at the current process and working with intention to fix and solve the problem. Sometimes we feel like we don't have time to do that. And it's that old adage, if you don't have time to do it right, when are you going to have time to do it again? So really do work with intention and take that time to step back and evaluate your process. So we often think of onboarding in any context as paperwork. It's forms, background checks, training modules, etc. But for the volunteer, this is their first real experience with your organization. This is where they decide, do I feel welcomed? Do I feel clear on what I'm doing here? Do I feel like this is worth my time? It's also where you decide as an organization and a leader how you're showing up. Have you made them feel welcomed? Have you relayed clearly what they're doing here and why? And have you made this worth their time? Every step in your process is communicating something. When things are clear and timely, it builds trust. When things are confusing or slow, it creates friction. And friction is what leads to drop off. So what I find helpful is breaking onboarding into stages. Because when we see it as one big process, it feels very overwhelming. If you're currently overwhelmed in your onboarding process, let us know in the chat. You're not alone, I promise. When we break it down, we can actually identify where things are working and where they are not. And most importantly, where people are getting stuck. This is a great place for you to engage volunteers on their experience with the process and getting their feedback. Surveys are great to add in after an onboarding process for volunteers to be able to openly, sometimes even anonymously, provide that feedback for you. When we think about attraction, that's what's drawing volunteers into your organization. It's not or doesn't have to be flashy or sexy. It's the mission of the organization. It's the why behind the work that you are doing. This is what speaks to the volunteer and where they find resonance and want to be a part of your mission. The application. Well, today's webinar is not about creating the best volunteer application. There are many resources out there for you to dig into and ways to create an application that fits best for your organization. But it is a super important step in the process. And I encourage you, when you're building your application, think about the questions that you're asking. Is there value? For example, you don't need to ask a volunteer if they're available on Sundays if you don't offer volunteer opportunities on Sundays in your organization. Small details like this can make an application too busy or overwhelming. Be clear on what information you need to collect. Their qualification or the fit. This is where you need to be reviewing the application to ensure that someone is the right fit for the role at hand. Make sure your role descriptions are clear about the job that they are going to do. Many people want to help out, but they might not understand the physical or time requirements of a volunteer role. When we think about preparation, training volunteers takes time. Angela is going to blow your mind in the second half of this session and show you how you can prepare volunteers for the roles before they even walk through the doors. And activation, the goal, we want all of our volunteers to get to this stage. This is where they're ready to start volunteering. Every step before activation is where we need to focus the most energy. Just want to do a quick check-in here. Do we have any questions that are coming up in our Q&A?
Yeah, Karen, I think that some folks are, curious about maybe what you just touched on that Angela will be bringing up of how to get those folks ready before activation. What questions to ask and what type of preparation do the people need?
That's awesome. We're building the anticipation in the crowd. It will be happening soon, I promise. Is there anything specific in there that I can touch on now? I can't see it, unfortunately, at this moment.
Looks like you're good, Karen.
All right. Awesome. Anything you want to add to this, Angela?
I'll wait till later.
Fantastic. All right. So let's talk about reducing friction without lowering standards. This is a really important point. Reducing friction does not mean lowering your standards. I'll use healthcare as an example. When we're working with vulnerable populations or in regulated environments, onboarding steps are needed to ensure that we're following protocols, onboarding qualified volunteers, and ensuring that we have the best fit for everyone. But we can still remove duplication, clarify expectations, simplify language, and be upfront about the timelines. This alone in any volunteer experience can make a huge difference. I'm going to give you a little homework for today. I want you to take a really good look at all of your onboarding paperwork. Are you asking the same or similar questions repeatedly? If you are, I want you to ask yourself why. If the system that you're currently using doesn't support asking these questions just one time and then them showing up where they're needed in an automated fashion, it's time to fix that. Angela, again, is going to dig into that a little bit later. She's our process girl for today.
Can't
Angela,
wait.
yeah, for sure. Do you have any quick examples of like repeated volunteer questions that you've seen on a volunteer application?
I think if somebody's asking, why do you want to be here? And then it comes up again, and then it comes up again, or where you work, or it just depends on how you process setup. Is it your name again? Like, I know I go to a doctor's office and I'm like, fill out this form again. I'm like, are you not digital? Like, after 15 times of filling out the same form. So we
Yeah.
don't want to do that. So absolutely, making things as simple and streamlined as possible is what you want. Think of Amazon. One click, done.
Right? The good old handy autofill. I love that. Thanks, Angela.
Yep.
All right. Sorry, I am working between two screens here and having the mouse trouble. Okay. One of the biggest gaps I see when we're talking about the waiting period um, is what happens in the waiting period. So if you've struggled with the waiting period as a leader of volunteers or as a volunteer yourself, put a thumbs up or a clock emoji in the chat. This is a real big trigger. Having to apply for something that you're so excited for, you just can't wait to volunteer, and then nothing. Did it work? Should I hit submit again? Did my application go through? It's that waiting period. Sometimes it can be weeks, sometimes it can be months, sometimes in my case, it can be a year. And during that time, nothing. No communication, no touch points. This is a missed opportunity to connect the volunteer to your organization. From their perspective, it feels like they've disappeared into a system. So the question becomes, how do we keep the momentum going, even when we're waiting on things like background checks, approvals, or position openings? This is where the design comes in. Run through the steps. Welcome emails, next steps, timelines, inclusion, connection, engagement. Silence is one of the biggest risks in onboarding. Even simple messages like sending, "We're waiting on your check. Here's what to expect next." Or, in the meantime, check out our latest blog. These can completely change how someone experiences the process because they feel seen and then they stay engaged. If a volunteer is waiting to be placed into a role, they can still be a part of your organization. Maybe you have an event coming up, a volunteer appreciation. They can still be included in that. They don't have to sit silently, even though they haven't taken part of physically volunteering in the organization. That's going to make them feel even more excited and even more engaged and even more ready to volunteer when it's their time. This is my favorite mindset shift. You don't have to do all of this by yourself. We often think, I need to get everything set up before I can bring volunteers in. But volunteers can actually help you build and run that system. Shout out to all the administrative volunteers out there. These people are gold. We love admin volunteers. They can help you follow up with applicants. They can help you support onboarding. They can help you with training. They can even mentor new volunteers. You can create roles that support your process and fill them with volunteers that are ready to help people help people. Because oftentimes, the reality is they didn't ghost you. The process lost them. I want to do another quick check-in and see if there's anything in the Q&A.
Looks like Court said thumbs up. We're good right now.
Okay,
I know
awesome.
there's one in there that we'll get to at the very end.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so what we've talked about so far is the strategy, how to think about onboarding differently. The strategy alone isn't enough. You need the systems that actually support this work day to day. And this is where my dear partner Angela comes in. Angela brings a ton of experience in building systems that make this process smoother and more efficient and a lot less overwhelming. In a moment, I'm going to hand it over to her, excuse me. But if there's one thing I hope you take away from our time together in the first half of this session, is that you don't need to fix everything all at once. Even small improvements in your onboarding process can make a big difference because onboarding works well when everything flows. Everything that follows onboarding makes everything that follows becomes easier when you've onboarded in the right way, when you've onboarded with intention and with your goals. I am going to just throw up a quick poll here for you, Angela.
All right.
Or maybe not. Sorry, guys. There we go.
All the right buttons.
There we go. I know. Take it away.
All right. All right. We'll switch the share and then replace. All right. I think. Good. All right. Did that show up now? We're back to the poll. All right. Excellent. All right. So as you're doing the poll, so this is the dream. Let's dream. What are you dreaming of? Your perfect CRM, which is basically your database of what you're trying to do and keeping track of everything. So let's see what we have here. What your dream job, or what, not your dream job, might be that too, but your perfect system. Training online available. I will talk about that. I love training online, and that's a little bit about what Karin was alluding to. The way I have it set up, volunteers can actually start training online at home as soon as they've filled out their application, which is wonderful because it keeps them engaged along the process and they're not waiting for me. They get an automatic email sent to them as soon as they hit submit. Now, sometimes it goes into their junk mail and sometimes it goes, to another folder, but at least it's been sent if they can find it. And I also have a volunteer, speaking of admin volunteers, Karin too, also, it's a great thing. I have a volunteer that helps me send out reminders to all of our applicants to say, hey, check your email. There's instructions in there on the next steps of what to do, and sign up for an interview with Angela, and here's how to do it. So definitely love that. The training online surveys are definitely really helpful to have. Reports are great, especially if you don't have to pull them out and do manipulations and figure all the numbers out. Scheduling, I love scheduling in the systems. That's fabulous as well. So yeah, and what do you have in the chat? You can put your perfect kind of thing. What would that look like? But a CRM, that customer relationship management, what that is going to do for you is help save time. It increases that engagement. Like I said, it keeps them engaged in different ways. And so definitely, if you don't have a CRM or don't like your CRM, evaluate your CRM and see what it's doing for you, and is it doing everything you want. It will centralize everything, so then you're not wondering, there's a piece of paper in this folder and there's something over here and then there's this Excel spreadsheet and there's whatever. Put it all together so you can find it and use that. Online access is so important today. Again, Amazon and everybody's on their phones, and it needs to be mobile ready, tablet ready, and laptop ready. And so it has to be able to do that. Scheduling's a great, and then that enhanced communication. So helpful and so important. So we kind of talked about that, before you go shopping, I will say, shopping for your CRM, that perfect CRM for you, you have to, I highly encourage making it your shopping list. Because when you start shopping and looking at different systems, each one's going to be a little different. Each one's going to have its strength, and it'll have this feature or that feature and things that you don't even need but sound really cool and shiny. And so you really need to look at what your needs are first so that you don't get distracted by all of the amazing things that all these other things can do that you don't even need. So what do you need it to do for you, have for you, save? What do you want to automate? What do you want to report? What do you need to schedule? What kind of efficiencies do you need to create? And each organization is going to be a little bit different, and each sort of genre of organization can be very different as to what you need. Somebody who needs day of volunteers for a big race and you need 500 of them all at once, that could look very different than somebody who has working in like the medical field, where they have lots of medical tests that they have to make sure that they had X, Y, and Z done and all those things. So you really have to make that shopping list first and then go shopping. So in your budget, if you don't already have a budget for a CRM, I highly recommend starting to ask for it, because this, and you can put this in as the ROI, the return on investment, is going to be huge on your time. You will be able to interact more effectively with volunteers, with staff, and do your job better, because the CRM, a really good one for you that matches, will save you time. It will also involve volunteers, because then you can find administrative volunteers that will also be able to learn the system and be able to help you along the way, freeing up your time to be able to focus on the bigger picture and all the things that you really need to do to move the volunteer engagement and that strategy within your organization even better. So I really encourage you to start asking now, if you don't already have that money in your budget, and talk to your fundraising team, talk to your boss, talk to the director, whoever it is that you need to talk to, and say, this is worth the investment because it's going to save so much time. And most likely the fundraising team has a CRM. So why do they get one and you don't? Just a question. Anyway, so you don't have to ask it quite like that. That's just for us. But anyway, but it's things to think about on there. But it will pull all these things together, and you can say, I'll be able to report better. I'll be able to do this in a more timely fashion. All those things are really helpful. So we're talking about the ghosting and that involvement and that impression from the very beginning. So from the very beginning, we need to be putting out the mission, the impact, and what's in it for me, for the volunteers, from the very beginning. And that starts with your application. It starts with role descriptions. It starts with the marketing and the recruitment materials that you're putting out there. So what's your application look like? Your homework, right? What does your application even look like? Is it easy to find? Does it link easily within your own website? What do you ask? Is it all the things required? And can you make some of those optional? Do you really need everything in there? Again, what's the phrasing? How are you phrasing your questions? And you need it to just feed right into your database, and that's where the CRM, it's all in one closed unit, which is really helpful and really effective and efficient. And do you need different kinds of applications for longer term or short term? Again, 500 people for a race or more of a medical thing, those applications could look different. So think about that too. So setting expectations for your volunteers can start at the application as well, because again, for a medical field, there's just so much more that go into it, or working with vulnerable populations. Is the background required? Put that out front so that people aren't blindsided or surprised at the beginning. And they'll self-select themselves out, not necessarily for background checks, but for other expectations that you put out there and say, we need you to be here for 100 hours this year. Somebody might go, well, I can't do 100 hours, so I'm going to self-select out and not continue that process. That whole interaction, what does that look like with that CRM, the website, the emails going back and forth? What does that look like? The interview, setting expectations up from the beginning in the interview as well. Having the handbook, I actually have the handbook as part of the application process. They're supposed to read the handbook before they even fill out the application, because if there's something in the handbook they don't want to agree to, I don't want to have them have to fill out and waste their time filling out an application to get to a point where they're like, oh, that's not what I want. And that can help them, again, self-select in or out, depending on whether they agree or disagree with whatever's in your handbook and your expectations. Role description is really important to put all of those expectations in there. And again, your training and appreciating the things that you want people to be doing can be so incredibly helpful and reinforcing. Templates. I love templates. So if you use templates in any way, put that in the chat. And I can copy and paste things, but I put this on purpose. You want to proofread, not proofread your work when you copy and paste. Be sure to double check everything you copy and paste because oops, something may have come over that you didn't want to. So definitely put that in there. So I create email templates. So when I get a new applicant interested through a different format that hasn't come through our website, I now put, copy their email, I put the subject line, and I do insert, and there's text. And I've created like a whole email template, and I click that once, I hit send, I am done. I didn't have to rethink how to retype the whole thing, da 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 da. So I love email templates. I like other templates as well. So anything else that you're doing on a regular basis, think about how you can create a template. And once you have a template, then even volunteers can help you and do emails or things like that are on a regular basis or to a very predictable group of people. So again, if you're doing the background check, not HR, create things that are needed for those that you always have just on hand that you can copy, paste, or insert. Following up is great and really important. As Karin said, if they don't hear from us in a fairly timely manner, they're going to wonder, like, what the heck? And so they're going to fall off and their interest is going to fade. And so we need to follow up with them. So I have found volunteers that like to follow up and they like to call people. So they will call volunteers or follow up with an email and say, hey, I'm a fellow volunteer. Do you have any questions? Happy to walk you through the process. And so they're really, really helpful in helping me keep connected to those volunteers. And I find that when they do that, the applicant is more likely to ask the volunteer a question than to email me directly, because I'll hear from the volunteer that's calling them, oh, this person has a question about da da da. Meanwhile, they hadn't emailed me at all about that question. So it can be really helpful to have a peer-to-peer connection. And I think that really helps them feel connected as well in that process. Surveys are great. Make calls yourself if you have the time and check up on volunteers. Where are they in the process? How's that working? And if you can, stop by a shift and say, how is your process? How is your onboarding? Again, it depends on the size and the location and all of those things of your particular nonprofit and your situation. But do those kinds of things. But again, those volunteers are so important. I could never do all I do at the Blood Bank of Delmarva, my full-time job right now, without them. So they are crucial to what you do. So that first shift, how do they schedule it? They need to know, how do they schedule it? When can they schedule it? Where do they show up? Name tag or not, where to put their coat. So all those things need to be in either an email template or a resource when they signed up. It needs to be in that role description. All those pieces of information can be so important. And again, we're setting up those expectations for them. We don't want them to go walk in somewhere and be like, I feel so lost. I feel so uncomfortable. I don't want to come back. So again, we're trying to, as Karin said, reduce friction and reduce uncomfortability. And we want to make this as smooth as possible. I think, the Olympics we just kind of had, and I think of curling, and I just, not that I'm a huge fan of curling, I just find it interesting about every 4 years when the Olympics happen. But with the curling, they have those brooms and they're rubbing that ice to make it as smooth as possible. So the rock, is that what you call it? Oh, sorry. Tells you how bad I am with curling.
Yes,
I just find it
it's a
interesting.
rock.
Thank you, Rock. I thought so. Okay, the Rock. Thank you. My Canadian friend. And so the Rock will more likely go where it is smooth. And so that's what we want. We're trying to channel the volunteers into a very smooth path so that they will keep following that and not be stuck somewhere or drop off.
Angela, while my Canadian heart is crying at the curling references right now,
Ah,
we have some questions in the chat. Are you okay if
great.
we detour for a
Yes,
second?
go for it.
Okay, excellent. So this one, so I think it's quite relevant to what you were chatting about from Laura. How do we get applicants to read things? We
Haha.
have we have 10 sites with 10 different applications. At the top of the application, applicants have to agree that they will only apply to one site. If they apply to more than one site, only the first site's application will be considered. The number
Mhm.
of applicants that applied twice or 5 times in a row is a lot. We don't know how to mitigate this. It creates a lot of work for us. So I think like, there's a couple big things there. And I think one thing that you and I might agree on is it's too complicated.
Right.
Like, first of
Yes.
all, yeah, it's that application sounds like there's a lot of friction to it, and there must be a way to simplify it that one application can filter to multiple sites. But how do we get people to read things? What's a big tip from you on that?
I think that's a great question because how many of us put this in the chat, a thumbs up or a smiley face or whatever? How many of us have found ourselves not reading everything? I'm guilty. And
So guilty.
so we all are. And so I think the best thing for that is to make it as eye-catching and pleasing as you can, as simple as we can, and as short as we can. And that's incredibly difficult for me because I have lots of words. My poor husband, he's like, you have lots of words. I'm like, I have lots of words and they never stop coming. And so for me, making something like that is a lot of work. But if we want them to read it, we must do that. And so I think of, I don't have where I put my phone down on the floor so I wouldn't look at it. But my phone. So if you have your phone, like what's on your phone? That's about all people will read, I think. And if you think about posts that as we're flipping through whatever social media or news or whatever's on your phone, think of how much we read normally ourselves, and it's not a lot of text. So I agree, making the least amount of text as possible, bullet points. And yes, I think we'd have to look at your that like the 10 application thing. I think we'd have to look at that specifically and see the best way to combine it so that maybe there's one application that then filters somehow to those 10 places. I mean, that would be
Great.
something,
Yeah.
to
And
look at.
I think too, something that you're going to dig into in a little bit is on some of those automations. So how do we get people to read things? Having a checkpoint after what they've read. So if they can't move on to the next
Yeah.
step
Right.
without acknowledging that they've read and understood, and not just checking out a piece of paper, but maybe even answering a question about the information that they've just read, if they have to do that one little bit, that verification before they can move on to the next step, that's a way that we can see if they've read. Um,
Right.
Another one that I saw in here, and we will get to as many of these as we can. Um, it's about, sorry. What are current expectations to follow up time, days, hours, etc.? So I think I'm guessing that that is kind of what is sort of a expectation of industry sort of timeline. And I think that's really dependent on what is achievable for your organization at the time. So I don't think
Yeah.
that I don't think that that's a really easy answer. But if you are going to commit to something, like if you do have a very busy inbox and you have an automated reply to emails saying like, if you're emailing me to apply to volunteer, here's the step you need to take. Or if you have a question, it might take 48 hours for me to respond to you. Just be sure that you're able to honor that commitment that you're making in that.
And I love that. Again, expectations are so important, setting up those expectations. If you know that you're doing this by yourself and you're doing another job on top of it, maybe your automatic response out of that application process is, thank you so much for applying. I will get back to you in a week. Thank you for your understanding, et cetera, et cetera. And in the meantime, do this. And I think all of that can be so helpful
Yeah.
in that setting expectations. And that's where if you get a CRM that will automatically send an email, I don't even have to think about that first email that goes out. It's part of that system. As soon as they click submit on that application, that email goes out to them and I get to put whatever I want in that email. So you get to then set those expectations up right away.
Perfect. I'll let you continue. Thanks, Angela.
Okay, cool. That's great. Thanks. So what I'm going to do next is take a tour through an administrative view. This is not what the volunteers see. So it is more complex, I'll say, than the volunteer side of things. So I wanted to just let you know that. And I'm using Better Impact because that's what I use. So that's what I'm going to show. But again, Go back to your shopping list. What do you need for your organization? And who's going to be running it? Do staff get into it? They could be an admin too. Volunteers can be an admin. So what is it that you need that's workable for your organization? So keep that in mind. And then how does it help your volunteer flow and your time management? So those are all really important questions to really think about as you move into what you really want or need. But I'm going to just show a little bit about kind of that mapping out how, on our end, how you can track volunteers. This is the home page. On the home page, it's going to show me applicants in process, accepted. So with that, you can start tracking and knowing how many people are sitting in your applicant pool, how many people are in process. If you want to, you can create whatever that is for you. Like, oh, I've met with them and I did this. Now I'm going to put them in process, and then they have to do B and C before I can put them in the applicant or to the accepted pool. So there's different ways to do that. And in here, this is the homepage for you. You get to see all sorts of things that are, important to what you want. You get to change that around, and all the important things you need to do and see, but you can see that right at a glance. There's also reporting that you can pop in here. You can see how your hours are, all sorts of great things. All right, so here's a new activity. So I'm going to create a new activity because, we have a new thing, and we're going to create office and computer assistants because that's what we need and want, our admin volunteers. But you can put all this in here. They can, you put in, this is what the volunteers are going to see when they log in and look under the title of administrative roles, and then they could sign up for this. So you're going to put in here all the description of what you want them to do. Again, setting expectations. Are they going to be sitting at a desk? Do they have to know Word? Are you going to train them in Word? What is it that they need to know? Do they have to understand Gmail and Google Docs? Like, putting all those specific things in here can be really helpful, because as they're reading that, they're going to go, oh, no, can't do that. Yes, I can do that. I want to sign up for that. It's scheduling. You can schedule. You can set up visibility and automation. There's all sorts of great things. So here's the schedule. So for this one, it's going to be weekly. I can do a template. Love templates. Did I say that? Love templates. So with that, you can set up, this is going to be on a certain day, a certain time, or you can set it up for, it's not recurring. It's just sort of like ad hoc, and you're going to put the dates and times in when you want, or it has no times and they just sign up and they just, you and them work out what schedule works best for them, during each week. And then they put their hours in manually. Visibility. I love this part. And this goes to qualifications and filters. So again, if you have somebody like the 500-person run, you may not need to quote, qualify people or you screen anybody out. But again, if you are in a situation where you need the volunteers to have learned, seen, and watched and read their training and at least click that they did, this is the way to do it, because they won't be able to sign up for a shift, depending on how you set this up, until they've clicked all of those boxes. And I even have it set up where I have to click a box on some of those, or the lead volunteer. Oh yes, I have lead volunteers. They're volunteers that do all sorts of wonderful things like training, like scheduling, and they are comfortable, and I've trained them in the system. So what they can do then, if they're qualified, then they'll see it, but they have to match all of those qualifications. And so those are all wonderful things to help filter and help guide. Again, the volunteers don't even see this. They just know that they can't sign up for something. Or they don't even see it, that they know that they could, but they can't. So it's not even there for them. With this too, qualifications. So they have to be qualified. They have to have done the training online, or maybe they had to have come into person. And that's how you can set this up. There's different ways to do those qualifications. And I love those. Really helps me a lot, because then I don't have to worry about volunteers signing up for shifts and places and things that they shouldn't be. Then you can do feedback. So depending on your role, if you want the volunteers to give you feedback about, gosh, I interacted with 11 people today, or I, fed and cleaned so many dog cages, or interacted with whatever. This is a great way to either do numerical feedback that they did a certain thing, or even like, how was your shift? How do you feel about it? How would you recommend? You can do objective or subjective kind of feedback for them. Don't make this like a huge thing, but make it quick. They would be able to fill those out at the end. E-learning, so this is where the learning part of Better Impact comes in. So whatever CRM, if you like to have that training within the system, know that you need to look for that. And I love this because this is where I can tell the volunteers, as in my email that's automatically sent as soon as they click submit, check out the training. It's located under my profile, and they can look for training, and 1 through 4 are required because that's how I have it set up for my trainings, and then look at all the others, and so that they can be working on all these trainings before I even meet with them. So that's a really wonderful thing as well. There's also a document library, so that then I can reference those links back to any of the role descriptions to say, for more information and to review, here's the link to the document library to find the particular information about that role. You can have, again, volunteers that are volunteer only. You can have volunteers that are administrative as well. And then, like me, I would be the active admin, full just admin, not volunteer as well. Reporting, so again, look at your shopping list. What is it that you need it to do? Feedback, surveys. How do you want to communicate? Do you want to email? Do you want to text? Do you want to do both? Do you want to do something else? I'm not even sure. So what is it that you want to do, and what works best for your group, your volunteers? Something in here too is birthday messages. So you can put up birthday messages. And I have, guess what? I have a template that says happy birthday. And I have a volunteer that every week goes in at home and goes da-da-da-da-da, click, click, click. And volunteers then get a birthday email. And it looks like it came from me, which it did, but the volunteer sent it. So that's really a great thing too. Custom fields, and you can put whatever else you need in there that you need to track, that you are specific to what you want to do and what you want to track and how you want things to be. And then again, each CRM is going to have different ways to do this, but you can track your applicant progress. So you can find who's in there sitting in applicant pool for a while, who's in process for a while, and who's actually moved into accepted. Then you could even pull reports. Sometimes I'll pull reports that says this volunteer, which volunteers have not done any hours yet. And so then I'll know who hasn't, they're accepted, but they haven't done anything yet. I'm trying to keep moving, and we'll get some questions there at the end. All right, so this is the website. So if you look up delmarvablood.org and find the volunteer page, this is what you're going to find. This is actually Better Impact. So this is linked to the blood bank website, and this, what you see is the screen that you will see. I've put all this in here, and like I said, I need to take my own advice and make this more simple. It has way too many words, and so it's something I can work on. But this is great because there's a little welcome video. You can insert a video. So now they're starting to get to know who I am. They see my face, and it's, it just makes it more personable that way. And you can put whatever you want in there, photos, videos, all those things to help them start setting that expectation, making those connections, feeling like we care. And so putting those things in there can be really important. But putting the expectations, you have to do an online application form. You have to do a background check, like all those things in there. This too, this is where all of the different roles that I want to put out in the public forum are, and they are listed with words. There's photographs. If they scroll down, they'll see photos and videos. And I had a volunteer, you'll see the video here on the kind of top right, the cafe center. I had a volunteer, I asked around, and a volunteer loved doing video things. So I'm sitting there in the chair behind this chalkboard, and the volunteer's taking all these videos. He took them home, edited, did the thing, and sent them to me. Find volunteers to do most everything. Not your whole job, of course, but they can help you in so many ways. So if you're like, oh, that'd be too expensive, it doesn't have to be expensive. Find a volunteer who can help you with all of these things. So again, too many words, but so bad example, but it's what I have right now. So if you go to it, you'll see it. But I have done like bullet points, and I've tried to highlight things. And so this click here is really yellow and hopefully pretty bold for people to go, oh, that might be important to read. So that's the volunteer handbook. So like I said, before they even fill out the application, I've clicked all that in there, that all that stuff's there. So if they read it, and they'll have that all together for them. So practically, because I'm all about practical hints and tips, because that's what we all want, right? Is how do I do this now? And so delegating and leading and training the lead volunteers, I have at the blood bank, there's 6 different buildings that are spread 3 hours apart from each other from end to end. I can't be everywhere, and I don't want to be everywhere every day, because that would take up my whole day all the time. And so I have been able to find volunteers who are lead volunteers. They want more responsibility. They want to be involved, and they like this administrative part. So they're working on the scheduling. I am able to, once I screen and meet and work with, and then find that I'm like, yeah, that person's a good fit for this role, I will then connect that new volunteer with our lead volunteer at the location that works best for them. And then the lead volunteer takes it from there, and they do the in-person training. They do the checklist of learning with them. They do all of those things. They go back in and they click the, yep, qualified. I've met with them in person. And then they follow that schedule. And so I have enabled them. I have trained them and really just worked with them to be able to take that on. And they love it. They love doing it. And it becomes, again, there's just one of me, and there's 6 different buildings and about 250 volunteers. I'm never going to have a personal relationship with 250 people. I'm pretty good, but not that good. And so with that, these lead volunteers are creating little communities and all of that stickiness to keep volunteers there. And it's just an amazing way to do that. So volunteer leads are really going to help you a lot. These volunteers can follow up with a different volunteer follows up with, like I said, those applicants, like, hey, set up your meeting with Angela. Do you have any questions? And then they pass any response back to me. Interviewing. So what I do is to save myself time, instead of being like, oh, when are you available? I'm not available. You're available. Blah, 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 with back and forth with trying to interview. What I do is I have created on my Outlook calendar 4 times a week, and they're consistent. And some days I have to cancel, and pull it out, but 4 times a week that I have on my Outlook that are for applicant interviews. And then those dates are all put into my impact page, the Better Impact System, for meetings with new people with Angela. And they can go to that. And that's the only thing that they'll see when they log in. So that's all they can sign up for. They sign up for the dates and times that work for them. I put the link and the Teams meeting link for that in the description in my impact page. Most people get it figured out. And if they don't, I get it. It's, if you're not that tech savvy, it's okay, but I work with them. And then from there, then we have our interview, and then we move on. So that has saved so much time instead of trying to set up individual interviews. And then whoever makes it, makes it. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 4. And it's just a great opportunity to see how they interact with each other or me. It is online, but again, I'm trying to cover 3 hours worth of space. And so this is the most effective and efficient for me to do it that way. All right. So those are things that you can think about and see what might work. So.
Amazing. Angela,
Right.
that was amazing. I even though I've seen the presentation already, my mind is continually blown. I love it. You've done such a great job creating a very easy to follow, frictionless volunteer onboarding. So thank you very much for sharing that. It was really great spending time with you.
Thank you all. Really loved it. Please reach out to us.